My wife and I are proud lesbian, powerful owners of Dapper Boy, but we really believe that clothing has no gender. Being a founder and being a parent really intersected. We were like, oh my gosh, this is one of those like pivotal moments where one decision could affect everything, not just the business, but also the family. Like it was like, am I making the right decision for everyone involved? Because it's not just me and my wife.
Welcome to the podcast, where we introduce you to incredible humans who share their journeys with the mission to inspire you to harness your own inner tenacity to drive your life and career forward. And now, your host, Adam Posner.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast, where I bring the best and the brightest in the world of business, marketing, and personal growth to help you harness your inner tenacity and drive your career forward. Guys, my guest today on the podcast is Charise Pasche. Charise Pasche, right? I said that right? I got it. I nailed it. Charise is a co-founder of Dapper Boy, and within 5 years of starting her online gender-neutral clothing brand, it is now a 7-figure company on a mission to revolutionize the gender-neutral fashion movement. And she loves all things fashion and knows how important clothing can be in a positively affecting one's self-confidence. This is critical, folks. This is how and why Dapper Boy was born, a brand focusing on size inclusivity, where fashion meets function. And we're going to get into her journey, her story, and a lot more. So let's get to it. Charise, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. That made me sound a lot better than I've heard in a while.
It's funny. People say, could you just be my hype guy? And just everywhere I go, every conversation, every interview, just come along and just kind of hype me up. But I want to get back to it. And I want to dig into your entrepreneurial journey. And you grew up in a Filipino-American household, immigrant parents.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a little bit about that influence and their work ethic and how they instilled that in you.
Yeah, so my parents immigrated here when I was 1. My dad actually had gotten like his master's degree in the Philippines, but a lot of his credentials didn't transfer over, so he actually had to start all over with his education, his college education. So I remember, he was going to school and trying to work and put food on the table, and same with my mom. She was raising 3 rowdy kids. And so my dad was doing some like under the work table and working full time and going to school. My mom was selling like frozen lumpia. I remember we would buy like at Smart and Final, we would buy those like individually wrapped candies and sell them to our friends that we were playing with. So we always grew up. Yeah, we always had this like side hustle where we were like trying to always contribute to the household income. So my parents always had that entrepreneurial spirit. But I will say we still had that like very Filipino upbringing where they showed love through their sacrifice and they really wanted us to become doctors and lawyers. And so I don't know if like this crazy journey of being an entrepreneur is necessarily what they saw, but they're totally proud of us. It's just like I've gone the unconventional way in many ways.
Yeah. And may I ask you, I mean, were they accepting of your lifestyle when you first came out and told them?
And I think we can get into this later, but I always say that it was easier for me to come out than actually tell them that we had to sell our home.
Ooh.
Yeah, to save the business. Both aren't easy, but I'm fortunate to be in business with my wife, and so they can see that like we are just 100% committed in all things that we do. So
I love it.
It did take a while for them to come around to us being, me coming out and being gay and all those things, but eventually they did.
Well, you're lucky to have that in your corner, because you and I both know so many really tragic stories, and it's tough as a parent, right? It's tough. People come from different backgrounds, whether they're religious or whatever they're political, just what's inside of them. Right. And the way I grew up, both my parents are educators and teachers, and it's about unconditional love. And that's the way I approach it. That's the way my wife and I approach it. And we always say, listen, if one of our kids, I don't care what they are, I don't care what they want to be, who they want to be with, as long as they're loved and supportive, and that's what makes them happy, then that what makes me happy. And that's
Yes.
that's a tough one, especially, I mean, tell me a little bit in the Philippines. being gay accepted? Is it accepted there, or is it culturally frowned upon? Like, how did that influence him?
Yeah, so I think it's coming
If you don't
around
mind
a
me
little
asking.
bit more. Yeah, that's totally okay. It totally is becoming more and more accepting. I think that, they're becoming more and more progressive. Um, I will say that, um, even having a Filipino background, I think the most prevalent thing is that, like, for me as a mom, the number one thing that the reason why I want to share my founder story is because I want my kids to grow up in a world where that's not even part of the conversation, that it's normalized. Because you were saying your parents are educators. I really believe that as parents, we're our kids' first teacher, right? It's like how we move through society. And there's so many moms that have reached out to us and talked to us about how important our brand is. Like we've had a mom reached out to us and say that her 13-year-old daughter was suicidal, but it wasn't until she saw a Dapper Boy ad that she was like, wow, brands like this exist. I feel seen, I feel represented, and that's what it's all about.
It really is. So let's unpack the story. And I watched the Shark Tank experience the other day, and
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
gonna. But before we get into that, I want to really talk about the story, Dapper Boy. First of all, where'd the name come from?
So we actually were going to start with suits. And so
Mm-hmm.
in our original logo, we have a bow tie. So that's really where it started from. But now, as we've evolved, and when we first started, we were like, well, everybody struggles with finding the right pair of jeans. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where we started. But we really feel like the word dapper is like a state of mind. When you feel dapper, you feel confident. And that's what we're all about. And boy, is that play on words. Like, it's
Yeah,
not BOY, it's
and BOI.
BOI because it could be anybody.
And the word dapper is interesting too, because typically you associate the word dapper to masculinity play, but here
Hmm.
it's kind of blurring the lines because that's what Dapper Boy is all about. And I want to talk about the origin, right? Your wife Vicky's personal quest for clothing that mirrors her true identity. And I'd love if you could
Hmm.
tell the story about the jeans with her struggle going into the men's department. I can't even imagine how that must feel, as someone who's not a man going into the men's
Right.
department, trying to find jeans
Totally.
on and getting eyeballed and judged and just being it's just
Hmm.
an insecure, scary situation. I'd love if you could share that story, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to say that it's almost like the both of us and what we found through her struggle of finding the right clothing. So my wife, previous to Dapper Boy, had worked in casino marketing, and she was
Mm,
always wearing suits.
yeah.
And prior to that, when she had cut off her hair, I think for a lot of people, especially in my wife's journey of cutting off her hair and finding clothes that just fit her better, like her how she
Hmm.
felt. Shopping in the men's department, it is, it's a journey. It's exciting to cut off your hair. You're excited to shop in the men's department. And um, when we met, she was wearing these clothes that I could tell she felt confident in, but they were ill fitting. I remember, and
Well, the
like
cut's
you were
different. A
saying,
men's cut is different
it's
than a
totally
female body
different.
form.
Totally. And it's privilege because I get to go to a store in the women's side, pick clothes right off the rack, and it fits me immediately. For
Hmm.
someone like my wife with hips, curves, a butt, which I
I
said
love that in the
on
Shark
Shark
Tank
Tank
too. That
too.
was funny.
I even like when we first started dating, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go to the mall. She just doesn't know how to shop for herself. And I brought home a handful of clothes, nothing fit her. And I saw her get even more and more discouraged. So, I like to say this story all the time that on our honeymoon, most people conceive their first child. For us, it
Mhm.
truly was our first child because she pitched me Dapper Boy and told me that, hey, I have this idea, which being married probably for a while, nothing good starts
And it's
from
always
that
on my
phrase.
side though. 99% of
Yeah.
my wife has a very traditional career as an attorney. I'm an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
podcaster, recruiter. Like I'm the hey, I have a crazy idea. How about we
Yep. Yeah, and so when she came to me on our honeymoon and told me this, I had no idea how crazy the entrepreneurial journey was going to be, but we started Dapper Boy and I said I was all in.
What did you both do before this?
So I was in higher education, so very similar to like University of Phoenix, where
Hmm.
you are helping get adult learners back into the online
Right.
college format. Yeah, and so my wife was in marketing management for casinos. So nothing in the fashion industry. We both started Dapper Boy with no experience.
I mean, and you came in with no experience too. And the way the Shark Tank story goes, you tell the story, you built it up, and you built up this incredible community.
Hmm.
On social media, doing all the pre-sales, and the sharks broke you down too because they really talked about how could you have so much lead time, how is all your money tied up in inventory. Let's talk a little bit about that Shark Tank experience too, and everyone, we're going to link it up in the show notes so you could check out that episode. I had a friend on Shark Tank, and he told me how intimidating it was and what the process was like.
It's
What
crazy.
was that process? And for anyone who doesn't know out there, what was the application process, and how long did that take? I mean, you were in business for a little bit before Shark Tank.
Yeah, let me give you a background
Please.
story first of everything that was going on during the Shark Tank period. So, I in 2021 we hit a million in sales. In 2022 we hit, or 2020 we hit a million. 2021 we hit 1.2. So business was
So I
going
got to
up.
use it.
Thank you. So we were really successful. I think that the statistics are pretty high of how many businesses don't
Yeah,
make it
the
after
fail rate's
five
pretty
years.
high. Yeah.
Very high. Yeah. So we have a 51% repeat customer rate. We were top 0.5% in Shopify. Like, our numbers were there. But as you know, COVID and the supply chain issues really
It's
hit because
disaster.
it was disastrous. When we first started our business, we took it to Kickstarter, did really
Mhm.
well. We exceeded um, our goal there. And then we did pre orders. So we kind of got our customers super excited. We would do, I want to say we got into like content creation and doing these fun videos on our phones before content creating was a thing.
Right.
And so people were really excited about seeing our brand because we talked about the problem in a very humorous way. People were able to
It's
relate.
relatable.
Um,
And it was pretty
yeah,
niche too.
totally
Niche,
relatable.
but a large
Yes,
market. Niche, but large.
yes, yes. And so um, once all the supply chain issues were happening and in a pre-order model, once you break the cycle, everything falls apart.
Right. It's like
So we
dominoes. Everything needs to happen in a
it
sequence of pre-orders and product and all the ordering. Hmm.
Exactly. Yeah, and we almost got a year in and we couldn't, everybody was backed up in their pre-order models. We couldn't ethically launch another product launch. And so we were stuck. At the same time, we were applying for loans. We were getting declined for everything. And the
Wow.
only thing that we were approved for were, it's called MCAs. It's those merchant cash
Hmm.
advance, those predatory loans. So the debt was
Scary.
stacking, supply chain issues, and we were in a very scary situation. So what we actually had to do is my wife and I had this conversation about us having to sell our home in order to save the business.
Let's pause on that for a second.
Yeah.
That is a heartbreaking. I mean, what was the
Mhm.
backup plan? Were you guys going to rent something smaller for the interim and or just figure it
Yep.
out, move in with somebody?
Yeah, we were lucky. We bought our home in 2018 when prices
Yeah, so you
were,
got in good. So there's value in
yeah,
equity.
so we got in good and we had a ton of equity. And for us, it was this situation where being a founder and being a parent really intersected. We were like, oh my gosh, this is one of those like pivotal moments where one decision could affect everything, not just the business, but also the family. Like, it was like, am I making the right decision for everyone involved? Because it's not just me and my wife. Now we have twin kids, and like, what is going to happen? However, we did have those stats where we were like, we have a 51 percent repeat customer rate.
All the
We
metrics were
had
point.
all
All
the
the green
success for,
lights, right?
right,
The green lights were
exactly,
lining up for you. It was a clear highway,
right.
except the money. It always comes down to the money, the monkey
It
money, I
always
call it.
comes down, yeah. And so, at the same time, we're also in this documentary called Show Her the Money, and we found that only 2% of female found businesses are receiving venture capital. It's a really
What
sad statistic.
is it just discrimination? Does it just come down to that, or is it a lack of trust in this niche market that's really sizable?
I think it's a couple things that come into play.
Yeah,
I
let's
think
keep it real.
sometimes women have a hard time asking for money. For my
Hmm.
wife and myself, we really felt like we needed to prove ourselves and say, like, okay, we've hit 1 million. Like now we qualify for these conversations. We felt like we
We have
needed
a
to prove
viable
ourselves
product.
to
There's a
even have,
demand. Yeah.
right, right. And so I think maybe for men, they feel like, hey, I have an idea, I'm going to ask. Like, so it's just like these generational internalized gender roles that we grew up, believing in, where even like the way that we talk to kids, like, where boys might be a little bit more daring. We're like,
Mm.
wow, good for them. They're trying. And for girls, we're like, be careful, and so it starts at an early age. So, anyways, yeah, we were in a position where we had to decide to sell our home. We actually shared our story in a documentary called Show Her the Money,
Mm-hmm.
and they went through our very up and down situation and watched our very vulnerable journey where we talked about our struggle to find venture capital and the fundraising journey. However, so we're being filmed for this documentary. We're also applying for Shark Tank, and then at the same time, we're selling our home,
And correct me if I'm
all
wrong.
at the same
Was
time.
this all? Were you going through IVF also?
No,
No, it's
no,
before.
no. This we did IVF in 2017.
Okay,
Yeah, and they
so
were born at 18.
so you so you're getting back to the story. My son was born in 18 also. A little crazy 6-year-old. A ton of
Yes,
I get it,
yeah.
believe me. So the Shark Tank application process, how does that work for anyone out there who doesn't know? It's
Yeah. So we actually applied in like 2015 and they loved our idea, but they said that we were just too early.
Mhm.
And then we had applied again. We didn't hear for a year. And then it's crazy that they actually producers were like, "Hey, we're going through the audition process. We like your idea. Let's go ahead and go through the process." Every single time. The first time we had talked to them, I think they go from like tens and thousands of applicants and they narrow it down to a couple hundred. We did our initial
Mhm.
one. And as we got closer and closer to it, they literally told us, this is going to feel like another full time job. It was
the
very, very
the prep
extensive.
is a lot. And you have to know
The
your
prep
numbers
is a
inside
lot.
out. That's the biggest one. You need to know landed cost. You need to know.
Yep.
You need to be able to dissect. And right, how long did they actually record for? Your segment was only 8 minutes. How long is the recording? How long were you in there
Oh my
for?
gosh. We were on set for over an hour.
So you're talking to them for over an hour, and what you see is 8 minutes out of that, right? How nervous are you when those doors open? Your heart
Excuse
just
me?
when those doors open on Shark Tank, right? What's that feeling? What's that feeling in your chest?
Um, it's interesting because in order to get through that process of selling our home, going on Shark Tank, all those things, I had to compartmentalize everything. And so it wasn't until the producers were doing the countdown of, counting backwards 10, 9, 8. I looked at my wife in that moment and I said, oh my gosh, we're on Shark Tank.
I love it.
Yeah, it wasn't until then that it hit me. And yeah, I mean, truly, I compartmentalized every single thing. It was very overwhelming to me. Um, yeah,
So we're gonna give away the ending here. No, none of the sharks presented any offers. They did offer some really candid feedback. How did you
hmm,
and your wife handle that radical candor? I mean, you had to know it was coming, right? You have to have thick skin. You know they're gonna hammer you.
totally.
You know these people are putting their money on the line. This is real money, folks. Shark
Right.
Tank's real money.
Right.
Um, did you go in thinking no? One of them is gonna one of them Damon. Did you have like a target? Like all right, Damon's gonna invest.
We were hoping for Damon. I think it turned out the best, when he had handed us his information, which is great.
Yeah, he handed you his
Um,
phone number at the end.
yeah, yeah. So that was great. And, that's so priceless. One thing that I wish that we had talked about is our MCAs. And I think that there's a lot of founders that get stuck in that cycle of like, those predatory loans. For us, it was our only way out in it,
Hmm.
but at the same time, it was so detrimental to the point where we did have to sell our home in order to save our business. But I think those conversations need to happen. It's as a founder and an entrepreneur, it's hard to get business capital. You have to show that you're profitable in order to be eligible for these loans. But I mean, if there's like, I think the number was like less than 2% of businesses are making over 1 million a year. So it's
Yeah.
like, which people are getting these small business loans. I mean, I
It's
wish we
crazy.
had talked about it. It was something that we didn't bring up on our Shark Tank episode.
Hey, everybody, I want to talk about a product and platform that I absolutely love and our latest sponsor, Interseller, the prospecting and outreach platform of choice for recruiters and sellers. Whether you're doubling down on business development or recruiting talent, Interseller does all the heavy lifting of finding contact data, automating the email and follow-up process, and syncs all that rich data into 20 plus CRM and ATS platforms. Reach out now and get going on a 2-week free trial and let them know you heard about it from Adam on the podcast today. Check out the link on the website. Appreciate it.
So you said at the end, I think your wife said this to you as you came out the doors. She said, "Sharks reminded us that our community is everything."
Hmm.
How do you guys define community?
So our community is our loyal customer base, you know. I think Shopify says that 28% is the threshold, the kind of the metric that you should be hitting for repeat customer
Hmm.
rates. The Sharks were so blown away at
I saw that. Cuban's
51%.
like Cuban just
Yeah,
gave you. He just stood up and he was clapping.
yeah,
And I've had a chance to meet him a
yeah.
couple of times. Like he says what he
He's
means. He means what he
excellent.
says, and he's personable and he
Totally.
cares.
Yeah, and he did us a solid. He put on our hat and he was like, "You've got good stuff." So that in itself is like marketing gold. Um, but I think, one thing that the Sharks missed is, I know for them, they really believe that there's riches in the niches.
Oh
But
yeah, I
for
love that.
us, my wife and I are proud lesbian powerful owners of Dapper Boy, but we really believe that clothing has no gender. We have a well known football player that wears our clothes because men have that issue also.
Yeah,
I think guys are really surprised by, wow, your clothes have stretch, or like
you're
myself, I love
fashionable,
wearing our
stylish.
jeans. Yes, totally. I love wearing our jeans because for some reason in women's jeans, there's no pockets. Our
Really?
coin pocket fits a large smartphone. Yeah, like you can't even get to the first knuckle. It's crazy. There's just no pockets in women's jeans. So I love wearing our clothes also. And so I think it's just really cool to um, not necessarily on our segment, we didn't sit there and just nod our heads and say yes to everything that the Sharks were telling us. And one thing
No,
that
you
I
don't have to
always
agree
say
with every
is,
shark. You don't have to agree with them.
right,
I mean, you know your business better
right,
than them.
exactly. And one thing that they didn't get, and I say this all the time, when you're so exclusive, you are no longer inclusive. And
Hmm.
that's not our brand. That's not
Ooh.
our mission.
Right, that's something to kind of think about too. Like you have a target segment, but then if you
Mm-hmm.
niche down too much, you're not inclusive. You're actually being exclusive, which goes against everything.
Right.
But there had to be an incredible halo branding effect, even from not getting an investment from the Sharks, the publicity, the
Totally.
PR, the social clips. How well did that help you guys?
So much. So much. I mean, someone had told me that, and this doesn't come from me, but a founder told me how hard it was to get on Shark Tank. She said that it's harder to get on Shark Tank than get into Harvard, based on the statistics alone, because of the vast majority of people that apply for Shark Tank.
Hmm. Interesting. So let's take it to where we are today. Financially, have you guys gotten back on track and heading in the right direction?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, being on Shark Tank, and I think that's something, a direction that Vicky and I are taking. It's because, for our brand, for our community, I think it is important for a brand like ours to be shown on mainstream TV.
Agree.
Like I was saying earlier, at first, I was super comfortable with Vicky sharing her founder story and me kind of being in the background doing all things marketing, social media, kind of staying in my lane. But there's so many moms that have reached out to us and said, wow, a brand like yours exists. Thank you so much. Like, I have somewhere to shop for my child. I think it's also important because being able to work with my wife and tell that story, is really cool also.
So let's talk about that for a second. I've interviewed a lot of founders who are in a
Yeah.
relationship. Do you guys have like a rule, like at the dinner table, no talking business, no pillow talk about business? Like, do you guys separate church and state? Like, how do you focus on? Like, I always say, in any relationship, date your spouse, date your wife, date your husband, date your
Yeah.
partner. That's how you keep the fire alive. But the thing my wife hates the
Yeah.
most is like always right before bed. I'm like, hey, babe, here's what's going on with work. She's like, really? I have one eye closed. Like, why are you telling me this shit now? Like, how do you guys manage keeping a strong relationship and being business partners? What's the secret?
There's no boundaries. We literally wake up every single morning and we're like, what's the plan with the family and what's the plan with the business? And I think because she knows how much skin I have in the game
Mm-hmm.
and because we're so driven to be successful, that drives us every single day. Dapper Boy is at the forefront of our conversations, and so are our children. So when I said that, um, I say all the time, there's nothing that I wouldn't do for my children, and I feel the same exact way about Dapper Boy.
I love it.
And when we decided to sell our home, one of the exercises that we did, this is something that we do annually. We do like our goal setting. Okay, what is our goal in 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years? And then Vicky had turned around and she said, okay, well, what would happen if the world didn't exist,
Mm.
if Dapper Boy didn't exist in 10 years? And that was a gut punch to us. We're like, okay, it's almost like a no brainer. Dapper Boy has to exist. And if there's no way that we're going to be, at that point, it was like 7, 8 years deep into the business and just give up now. So, yeah, Dapper Boy is really part of our daily conversations.
I want to talk a little bit about the product process. Talk about the creative process. Are you guys handling all the design on your own? Have you built out a team? How do you incorporate feedback from other ladies in the community into the design?
Yeah. Yeah, so we started off with jeans. Well, first off, my wife and I have zero fashion experience.
Yeah, I
When
was
we
about to
first
ask.
started off,
Here's my
yeah,
next
there's like,
question. Yeah, I'm like, how'd you guys do this with, like, is it like if I was drawing a pair of jeans, it would literally look like a 3-year-old, like a box pair of jeans with like a zipper and a couple of pockets. Like, how'd you get
same.
inspired? Like, like, how'd you get into the fashion? It's a tough game.
Yeah, I love all things fashion. And so, for when we first started, it's not an easy Google search. You can't be like manufacturers,
Well, I guess ChatGPT could
we
probably teach you to
yeah.
I kid.
In 2014, 15, it was really tough. And in the beginning, we were literally calling people for months and we got hung up on a lot. We didn't
Mm,
know the lingo. We were just so green. We had no idea what we were doing until finally somebody picked up the phone and said, I think you guys might be onto something. The sample process, we literally took the best of both worlds. So we looked at men's jeans, we looked at women's jeans, and we said, we like this, we don't like
mm,
this, and we married the two. Um, Typically, the sample process takes a few weeks.
mm.
This took 6 months. 6 months, yeah. And it's interesting now, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys' jeans have a little bit more stretch. It's something guys are a little bit more
Mm.
used to. But back then, it was like revolutionary to have stretch a more masculine cut of jeans. So that's something that, in women's jeans, it's almost too stretchy. They almost feel like leggings. So that was something that we wanted to incorporate into some of our jeans, like high quality jeans, but with the stretch factor in it. And then from there, at the same time, once we were on Kickstarter, we started the sample process of our button ups as well. So our button ups are really cool because they do account for the hips, but they still have that straight cut of like the men's aesthetic. And then we also put hidden snaps behind the button placket so you don't get that chest gap. I
Right.
know
So you get the
guys get
close.
that also. It's like really annoying.
There's certain,
Yeah,
like, sometimes the buttons don't line up and they're just not in the right place, and sometimes you're showing a little too much and you want to cover it. There's a lot that goes into it. So today we talk midway through 2024. What is the biggest challenge that you guys are facing from a business perspective?
biggest challenge. I want to say it's still capital. It's something we're
Always.
still in the fundraising process. It still always comes down to money. I mean, what we faced a year ago is completely different challenges. It's a good problem to have.
Hmm.
We have this line of customers and, that want more from us. But it is always going to be capital. We
Yeah.
female founders are always going to be undercapitalized until we start to have more conversations about it so we can move that 2%.
Are members of the community investing?
Yes. Yeah, they are. And we're so fortunate that, our lead investor, is it was probably the easiest conversation. We were fundraising for months and months. And then once we had talked to our lead investor, she's like, "Oh, I've seen your ads. I'm a customer. I love it." And so it was like the easiest conversation. I remember I had my mouth open. I was like, this never happens. It was insane.
Well, it's magic, right? Like that's the way,
Yeah.
right? That's the way it's meant to be. And what is that secret like on social media and community? Like, how are you guys driving so much magic? Building and connecting a community on social.
What I think is really cool, my wife grew up like with a camcorder in her hand. She was making like Dentine commercials when she was little. So she understood and when we were filming these videos on our cell phones, it was before like having your cell phone and filming everything was really a big thing. So
Before
I
the
think my wife really
TikTokification.
understood.
Mm.
Totally. Yeah, she really understood um like video creation, content creation before that was the thing, and she understood like the virality of it, but then she also understood like she wouldn't necessarily resonate seeing an ad of somebody that was like a size 0. So we got our friends that look like normal people, people that are plus size, people that are shorter,
Normal
just like
people,
different proportions.
not skinny Victoria's
Yeah.
Secret twigs, right? Like real people.
Uh-huh.
And that's
Yeah, and so we started like doing these videos, and it's like really interesting. We would just have our friends wear our stuff, and then we would have customers say, "Hey, I think I'm Celeste size. Like, what size does she wear?"
that's
And
so
so people
interesting.
started getting like, yeah, people started getting invested in like our friends that were our models and seeing them. And we always have had like a diverse lineup of models. Like we've shown more feminine aesthetic and, men. And we always knew that we wanted to show different range of,
I love
of
that.
body types and looks.
And how does that translate to the actual business side, right? How do you ensure, like, with your team and the folks that you hire, that you're practicing what you preach as far as inclusivity?
That's so funny that you say that because it's my wife and I
It's just the two of you.
and two
You have
very, very
nobody.
part-time employees.
That's it. So you're handling
That's
everything,
it.
every aspect, the business side, the creative side, the productions.
Every
So, Charisse, what's keeping you up at night
everything.
with the business aside from money? Let's park money aside because I know that's what keeps me awake at night with my
Yeah.
business. But what what is that challenge? What's keeping you awake at night without saying money?
Hmm. I think it's almost like what the shark saw is like seeing us in a niche. Like my wife always says like she really believes that we are the next Levi's of all gender fashion. Like
Ooh,
we've always pushed
love
back.
the
We
lofty
don't
goal.
want to be, yeah. Do you remember like Pride Month last year, Target, there was this uproar. Nobody wanted the Pride section at Target. That is not what we want to be. Again, we are proud lesbian female founders, but that's not all we stand behind. We dream about having our clothes at Nordstrom because how archaic is it that there's a men's section and a women's section and you have to pick a side? Right? Clothes have no gender. We would love to be part of the whole fashion revolution of a brand like ours deserves to be in mainstream
Right.
department store.
So it's interesting, and I hope this doesn't come out the wrong way. So you're not trying to tie yourself to the gay ship, right? But you're trying to just create a new category that's all inclusive. Is that right? Like,
Yes.
right? And just to think about it, it's like, listen, this isn't just a clothing line for it's for everybody. It's a
Mm-hmm.
non-binary, gender neutral. If you like the way it looks and then you like the way it feels on you, then fucking buy it.
Yes.
Right? Like, what if I
Yep.
went in there? I'm like, you know what? And
Yes.
I'm not looking. Oh, I'm not shopping there. That's not my section. No, no, no. It's just in the mainstream, and it's just a brand. It's just another brand that's
Mm-hmm.
cut differently,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I love
Exactly.
about this story too, and the approach. Like, you're not like correct me, like you're not just going out and building alliances with just the gay community. It's for everybody because then you're not niching yourself down, and you're also actually being more
Exactly.
inclusive.
Exactly. And we are size inclusive also. Like our jeans are size 26 to 52, which is unheard of for most brands. Like for Shark Tank, we actually did this exercise. We went to a department store, and she was actually at the very top of the size for the men's section. And then we had to go to like a big and tall. And it
Hmm.
was interesting because she was in the smallest at that store, but the button ups went to her knees. It was really
It just
interesting. So
wasn't.
it can't just be for people that look like my wife, right? It was like men must have this problem also, like that middle category that our clothes fit normal people. I mean, I want to say for in women's size, the US average size for a woman is a size 14. And for people listening, a size 26 to 52, 26 would be like a size for women's.
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't. And then the different sizes and cuts. Like, so if you go to a big and tall store, you might get the Y, but you're getting too
Uh-huh.
long, right? So you have to get the
Right.
you have to get the proportions right. That's crazy. So
Right.
what's good on the horizon? Like, what is? Give us some alpha here. What are you guys working on? What's exciting you? What are you ready to break through on?
So I'm ready to get into some different styles. We're also like gonna be getting into some suits. So not just like the jeans and the button-ups and the t-shirts. We're excited to get into um, different like suit looks. We're hoping that we can have some conversations and get us into maybe some department stores and start some collaborations. I know that there's some really cool things on the horizon for Dapper Boy.
I absolutely love it. So who in the business world, who inspires you? Who are you guys drawing your motivation from? Or
Oh,
maybe
that's a good
celebrity,
one.
right? Like
Who
who's
is?
really putting like, all these celebrities right there are going out with their brands. I mean, look at Ryan Reynolds. He's like the gold standard. That guy's probably made more money off his brands.
Oh yeah.
And he is a very successful actor. You look at the gin and and the Mint Mobile and everything, but like from a business, like who do you guys look up to?
I personally really I I resonate with the way that Khloe Kardashian and Good American has done their business. I think that she's done a really good job of I think that she was one of the first to include like three different looks and models on her website, like a size 0, a size 8, and a size 16. Like she's done so much for size inclusive denim fashion. And I mean, she's taken her Kardashian name and run with it, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think she's done just a really good job there of just being very inclusive.
I love
Um,
it.
but in general, like, when my wife and I think about Dapper Boy, we really do align ourselves with Levi's. And we say
Mm.
Levi's because they're a staple brand. They've been around forever. And that's really where we see our brand as a timeless brand.
And Levi's always been inclusive, and they've always been at the point of cultural
Mm-hmm.
revolution, and I
100%.
absolutely love it. So when you and your wife are talking and thinking about the future, how do you define legacy? How do you want to be remembered? When your time on this earth comes.
Yeah, I think that I always, my wife and I want to be known for creating. When we talk about Dapper Boy, we say that it's a brand where you feel more confident and more authentic through clothing, because I know everyone says it's just clothes, but like everyone knows that when you have like that one outfit or that one piece of clothing that makes you feel your best, you stand a little bit taller,
Mm-hmm.
you show up more authentically and confidently, and that's what creates a more productive society. Having a brand like ours, and again, like my wife and I walking out on Shark Tank holding hand in hand, that was big for a mainstream television show.
It's great.
Um, and so we want to be the ones to start those conversations, make people feel their best selves. I have to share a story really quick. We had
Please.
a dad, or we had a customer reach out and said that she was estranged from her dad for many years because he didn't agree with her lifestyle. And he's an avid Shark Tank watcher. And he said to her, I have three words for you. Check out Dapper Boy. She said those three words are literally what opened the lines of communication with the two of them. And it
Wow.
took a brand like ours seeing a brand like ours on Shark Tank for him to really understand his daughter
I mean,
and to
that's
open those lines of communication. I mean, I really feel like us putting our story out there, like when we put our story on Show Her the Money, and it was some tough times. Saying that we had $100 on Shark Tank, that was scary.
that's
Like,
vulnerable and
I
open.
mean,
You open the
yeah,
kimono,
oh yeah. I I love all things social media, especially being like, in charge of marketing and social media with the brand. And so when I put on my own personal social media that we were selling our house, I think everybody had the impression that we were upgrading.
Mm.
And I let them think that. But then when we got the email and said, okay, we have an air date for you, for Shark Tank, I looked at my wife and I said, oh my gosh, my very
It's real.
best friends are going to find out with the rest of America that we're not in this position that I'm letting everybody think on social media.
Right.
And it was, yeah. And I called my best friend and I told her the exact story. Like, we're actually selling the home because we're not in a good position. We're gonna, we're putting all our eggs in one basket. We're gonna save the business. I really started to say like there's power in this vulnerable story because everybody, especially in the social media world,
It's all optics.
tries to, yeah,
They
it's
tried
all
to
optics,
flex. They
right?
tried to
And
flex,
so
but you were open and vulnerable, and that's hard. And I say this, Charise, I
it,
say this to everybody. The treasure is in your shit pit, right? The treasure's in the shit
uh-huh,
pit. The treasure's when you're at
totally,
your lowest and you have nothing. Because you know what? The greatest foundation to build upon is rock bottom. And it sucks when
uh-huh,
you're there. I've been there plenty of times.
totally,
But when you
yes.
climb back up, right? When you that's what it's
Mhm.
all about. Sharice, I want to bring it home here. I love this conversation, and definitely I want everyone to check out Dapper Boy. We'll link it up in the comments here. Um, this show is built on sharing wisdom and insights and advice. So what is that greatest piece of advice that you ever received that you take action on every day?
There's power in the vulnerable. Share your story. Um, yeah, share your story. Help another founder out. Um, I really wish that we connected early and often. So we feel very passionately about networking with other entrepreneurs because we know that there's lessons to be learned and that we can also share some of the lessons that we've learned along the way.
Abundancy, right? Really just sharing means caring. That's what it's all about. And Sharice, last but
Yeah.
not least, you guys have certainly been through some really rough times emotionally, business wise, with your family. And in those moments, you had to dig down deep and harness that inner tenacity to pull you up and forward. And now, in the same moment, you say with gratitude for this company, this life, this family, these relationships that you've created. What keeps you focused? What is your beacon? Charise, Pasche, what is your North Star in life?
My family and my wife. Um, yeah, I mean, we both are so committed to this business and helping, again, and I know I keep coming back to it, is the confidence in helping others. As a mom, it breaks my heart that there are adolescents out there or just even people struggling in their journey. Um, so we are just so proud that we have the honor and the privilege of having a company like Dapper Boy and hearing these incredible customer stories every single day of how we positively affected their lives.
That's what it's all about. Amazing product, great story, incredible mission. Charise, I want to thank you so much for joining me today on the show. I want everyone to check out Dapper Boy at DAPPERBOI.com. Sharing means caring. If you know somebody who could benefit and really love this product to make them feel their best and their most confident wherever they are, definitely check it out. Charise, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
It's been a tremendous conversation. And everyone listening at home, please, sharing means caring. Review rating goes a long way. Forward this to your friends, your family, anybody who needs to hear it. You know where to check out more at thepodcast.com. Follow us on all the social media channels at NHP Talent. Follow us on YouTube /thepodcast. Remember, be good to yourself, be better to others, and catch us next week for another great episode of the podcast. Take care, everybody.
Wisdom is forever, but for us, it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode soon, jam-packed with more incredible humans. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and sharing. To To join the conversation, search the Podcast on LinkedIn. And to catch up on past episodes and more info, please visit www.thepodcast.com.